What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new, I do want to say welcome. On this channel, we talk about a lot of things when it comes to life and sort of just breaking the mold and seeing things for what they are, being able to live this life with your eyes open. So for today's video, guys, I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind, and that is some people don't want to wake up. Now, if you're watching this video, if you're watching this channel, you probably think outside the box, or you have the willingness to do so. Now, guys, I think most people do not want to think outside of the box. They don't want to wake up because we live in a life that sort of lulls us, right? We live in a time where there are plenty of distractions, plenty of things to keep us entertained, preoccupied, and a lot of it, if we're being honest, it's to keep us in sort of a trance, right? It's to keep us just kind of going through life from one thing to the next, never really questioning what's around us. We all have to sort of play into a system, right? And that's why it's really useful to look into things. It's really helpful to question things and figure out what they're really about. Guys, a lot of people aren't going to want to do this because it's uncomfortable. A lot of people are comfortable going with the crowd. And I was like this at one time in my life, even though I always thought that I was thinking outside of the box and I never really wanted to do things the way that everybody else was. I still find myself going with the crowd in some things, right? And I have to catch myself. Not saying that you can't enjoy things that, the general population does. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? I'm not here to condemn, TV and movies and video games and, having fun, right? Because there is a lot of things that are, fun to do in life. It's fun to go out. It's fun to go bowling, watch a movie, have fun with friends, right? But it's the way in which we do them. You see, a lot of people, like I said, they're in sort of a trance, and I believe that's because most people are dealing with something internally. And if you resonate with that, go ahead and drop a like. Let me know if that resonates with you in the comments, what your thoughts are. I'd love to be able to see them and comment on that. And guys, I think that if we're being real, a lot of us are trying to escape something, right? We all have baggage. We all have hurt. We all have, trauma and things that we are trying to get over, things that we're trying to suppress, run from. But maybe you guys can relate to this, but there was a time in my life where I was running from the truth, right? And the truth was that I couldn't do everything on my own. There's a message going around these days. It's very big, especially if you're a man, even if you're a woman. I would say it's probably just as prevalent, right? That if you are not independent, right? If you do not pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do life on your own, that there's something wrong with you. And I believe that independence is important. Don't get me wrong. But we have sort of elevated ourselves and we've put ourselves on a pedestal, and we've said that, hey, we are the most important thing in our lives. We come first, everybody else comes second. I got to get mine. I got to make it to the top. Even if I have to step on people, even if I have to lie, cheat, steal, whatever it takes, right? And you can go further with this, right? If I have problems, I'm not going to face them. I'm just going to keep, self-medicating. I'm going to keep going out, having fun, distracting myself. I'm going to keep suppressing those things. Especially as a man, we're taught that we shouldn't talk about our feelings. We shouldn't be real because it's going to turn people off. And guys, I'm going to be real with you. Most of the time it will, especially, if you are more of an emotional person. I would say that in some ways I can be, right? I feel things very deeply. I think about things very deeply. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. And if we're being real, I think a lot more people do, but they try to hide behind, maybe false bravado, or the fact it's not really that big of a deal, man. You just gotta face it. And there is some truth to that, because as a man, you can't live based off of your feelings. As a person, as a woman even, you can't just live based off of your feelings, because your feelings, let's be honest, guys, they change by the minute. Goodness, sometimes by the second. One moment you're feeling this way, and the next you're feeling that way. You might feel impulsive to do this thing and then realize, you know what, I'm glad I didn't act on that, because if I did, what sort of heartbreak, what sort of pain, what sort of trouble would that get me into, right? And so how do we break through this, right? How do we live in a world where a lot of people don't want to think about life this way? Guys, I think it's helpful to remember that everybody has their own journey to go through, so to speak, right? Everybody has a path that they're on. And some people are going to wake up sooner than later. Some maybe never. Some it might take many, many years, many decades for that to happen, right? Some people don't wake up until their 40s, 50s, 60s. Some people don't ever find their calling until they're, 60 plus, right? Some people know exactly what they're going to do when they're, 16, 17 years old. It all depends. So how do we get along? How do we live in a world where everybody does this, right? I think one thing to keep in mind is to realize that at the end of the day, like I said, everybody's on their own path. You have your own mission. And it's important to recognize and realize what that is. Many people feel like they have to play a part in something. They have to do something that other people are doing, right? It's a community thing, right? We want to feel part of a community. It's ingrained into us. If we isolate ourselves, then we tend to not be the best person that we could be. And again, I'm speaking from experience here. A lot of us tend to sort of default to ourselves and just trust in ourselves and just do what we think is best. And guys, what it takes understanding where people are coming from. It takes some empathy. It takes putting yourself in other people's shoes. It takes being patient and kind and generous. It's breaking the mold. Especially these days, I notice it where I go, where I talk to people. Most people are used to looking out for themselves and believe that everybody's doing the same. Most people default to just me, myself, and I. And when you show a little bit of kindness, when you show a little bit of compassion or understanding, that tends to change people's lives, because we all want to be listened to, right? I thought it'd be a really good idea, just as a little side note here, one day when maybe I have some more time and I don't have as many obligations, I'd love to start some sort of, service, basically, where I can talk to people one-on-one. A lot of people are into this online coaching and stuff like that, but taking it a step further and just meeting people where they're at. At the end of the day, everybody can talk to a therapist. Everybody can talk to, a social worker or something like that. There's a lot of coaches out there. But I think sometimes people just need a friend. They just need somebody to talk to relate to, someone that's just going to listen. And I found in my life, even though I love to talk, I love to be around people, that when I learn the most and when I really, increase my social circle and really get to know people, it's when I just shut up and listen. I don't like talking a whole lot around people, because most people are going to talk. Most people just love to talk. And the people who talk the most normally are the ones that need to be listened to. I'm not saying you should go around trying to fix everybody or trying to, be a therapist to everybody's problems, because that will weigh you down, right? But we can still have some grace and compassion for each other. And I think that if you are a spiritual person, Again, this channel is geared towards that. I believe that if you're spiritual, if you think about these things on a serious level, that we need to remember the example that Christ gave us, right? I've said it before, I'll say it again. There is a false view of who Christ was. You know, some hippie love kind of guy who just went along with everything and, you know, showed no judgment towards anybody. That couldn't be further from the truth. He called people out. He told them the truth in love. He spoke to their heart. He met them where they were. And I even saw a little video today about how we should live like we're going out basically into hell on earth, trying to rescue people from the evil one, right? From Satan. We should live our lives understanding that we're going to live in the kingdom of darkness, that we're going to be surrounded by darkness. And again, people are at many different places in their life, but if we had the understanding that a lot of people are just hurting, a lot of people are coming from something that's painful, something that they have been taught a certain way to cope with it, or they are self-medicating in some way, that again, they're in a haze, they're in a trance, that they're in a point of their life where they can't break out because it would be too uncomfortable. Guys, when you, again, if you guys have experienced this, let me know, but when you start to face yourself, when you start to face your problems, life gets a whole lot crazier, and it will maybe for some time. That was the case for me. I kept running away from things. I kept just not addressing it head on. And what happened is over time, it built up. It pressed me down. It made me very antisocial. It made me a conformist. It made me someone who was not sure of myself. It made me someone who was just very judgmental. And we need to be careful. We need to be very careful with our minds, right? And our hearts. We need to dive deep into it. We need to face it, right? Because eventually, sooner or later, it's going to come out, right? There's a lot of studies. There's a lot of things coming out right now, you know, talking about trauma and what it can do to the human body, and how in our modern day, because we're so disconnected and we're afraid of talking to people, we're afraid of bringing things to the light, we're afraid of shame and guilt and what the world might think of us, people are hurting more than ever, and they don't have anywhere to turn, and so they're getting into worse and worse vices. And they're finding that a lot of people, once they start reaching, you know, their 20s, 30s, 40s, is when they have, you know, some people call it a breakdown, shutdown, whatever you want to call it, where their body, you know, central nervous system, their sympathetic, their parasympathetic, everything shuts down. It gets overwhelmed, and they go through a time of burnout. And maybe they can't hold a job. Maybe they have really bad, you know, family problems, you know, marital problems, financial problems, mental problems, right? It's like it just hits the fan. And a lot of people don't know what to do because they're told that, you know, if they get help, that they're going to be, you know, taken advantage of. People won't look at them. They won't respect them. They won't listen. And so I think the greatest thing we can do is just really meet each other where we're at. You see, unless we live in the middle of the forest, you know, secluded from everybody, there's always going to be someone that's in our life. There's always going to be people around us, you know, work colleagues, friends, family, things like that, that we can call, that we can talk to, that we can be there for. And the truth is, guys, we really can't do that unless we look inwards first, right? We have to attack things head on. We truly do. And the reason I'm saying this is because I put it off for so long. I got to a point where it got to be almost too much. And I went through a few years where I was all over the place, guys. I didn't know really how to deal with it or what to do. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, the most important thing you can do, right? Obviously, you need to face yourself. You need to understand where you're coming from, right? Don't wallow in it, but just face it head on. If there's things you just haven't really thought about or confronted, like confront those things. The most important thing you can ultimately do is rest in Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. They get angry, they get upset because, again, we're told that we should be able to take care of everything on our own. Or we think that Jesus is some genie in a bottle who's going to take all of our pain away instantly and give us everything we ever wanted, and life's just going to be 100% better. But guys, when you walk with Christ, it's a journey. It's breaking the mold. The old man dies. When you ask Jesus Christ to be your Savior, when you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that He is Lord, He will reveal Himself over time. Sometimes a lot at once, sometimes a little bit as the days go on, and then you look back as the years go on and you're like, whoa, I'm not the same person I used to be. I don't think the same way. I don't do the same things. But you live a life that gets more and more into the truth. But it's a painful process. And most people don't want to wake up. Some people don't want to wake up because it is very painful. It's a jarring process, guys. The best way I know how to describe it is almost like it's like surgery without anesthesia for your mind and your heart and your soul. You will encounter things, you will encounter dark times, you will go through dark times. But I believe that that's part of the process, right, of the sanctification. And see, there's going to be some people watching this video, or just people in general, right, who are going to have their doubts, who are going to say, well, you know, yeah, that's great, but I figured it out on my own. I got it down. But guys, the truth is, if you're not following the light, if you're not following the way and the truth, if you're not following righteousness, then you're still living for the world in some way. The evil one's going to tell you that you're living for yourself, that you can choose between God, yourself, and the devil, right? And where he gets a lot of people is he tricks them into thinking that they can live for themselves, that you can choose yourself. But see, when you choose yourself, you choose to live for the evil one, because that's where it all started, is tricking man into thinking that he was better, higher than God. He didn't need to listen to God because he could make a decision for himself. And that's what I'm urging you guys to do, is to make a decision. Make a decision, guys. I'm going to put the pressure on you. Today's the day. Now is the time to pray and make a decision. These things should weigh very heavily on your hearts. You should be very concerned. If you've never been concerned before, you should be questioning things. You should work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Because there was a time where I was living a certain way that I thought, you know what, if I have just enough God in my life, but I'm, living my own way, then I'm okay, right? But all that brings you is hell on earth. It brings you more confusion and more hurt. It brings you further from the light, right? You're obscured in darkness. And so have that in mind, guys, when you're talking to people, that some people aren't there yet. Some people don't want to wake up to the truth just yet. Some people are okay going with the crowd, going with what everybody else is doing, because that is what is accepted as a society. There are people, there are products, there are things, businesses that are propped up for a reason, to advance the kingdom of this world, the kingdom of darkness, to get people in line, in step. And if you don't get in line, then you are an outcast. Then you are looked at like a weirdo. You're kind of shunned from society. And now with us having phones and social media apps like crazy, this is now a bigger deal than ever. It's always been a big deal, but now people are just so frozen, right? They don't know what to do. They don't know what the right thing to do is anymore. And so be that light for other people. Show them with boldness. We're commanded to be bold and courageous in the Lord. We're commanded to not fear death, not fear evil, not fear the one that comes by night, the evil ones. Guys, there's a lot of influence in this world in a lot of different places. And the chosen ones of God, I'm going to be honest with you, are being monitored. There are people monitoring spirits. There are people in high places, low places. There are people who are watching you, who are keeping tabs on you. There are people who are seeing if you're going to slip, if you're going to fall, who want you to fall, who want you to come down to their level, who want you to follow them into the darkness, right? Because that's all they know. But you have a light that's greater than the darkness. So be prepared for that to happen. Some people, they're not ready for it, but that light will shine brighter and you will be a testimony to them. You will be able to witness to them. Guys, and sometimes we think it takes the perfect, situation or the place and time to bring up Jesus or God. Guys, I'm going to be real with you. This is something I'm working on, but instead of, walking into work being like, oh, another day. Yeah, this day's going to suck. Oh yeah. What if we started saying things like, man, I'm so glad God gave me one more day on earth. That's going to make people look at you like, dude, what? But over time, guys, there will be people, because Jesus said that my sheep will hear my voice. There are going to be people who are going to start asking you questions. You can start to, just tell them with boldness. The Spirit will give you the words to say. The Spirit will guide you in what you should say, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I got to think of the perfect thing to say to people who ask me about these things. The Spirit will guide you with the words, what they need at that moment. You might not be able to bring everybody to Christ, right? Only He can, but you'll plant a seed, and hopefully that seed will sprout into something real. So guys, just be aware. Some people aren't ready to wake up. It's for a multitude of reasons, but it's because this world has people in a trance. It has them comfortable. It has them self-absorbed. It has them focused on their own hurt. But there is a light that's greater that shines in the darkness, and that is Jesus. I truly do believe that. If you guys are new to the channel, you know that my favorite books, really, the whole Bible is great, but I recommend that you start in John, right? John chapter 1, and then you also start reading Proverbs. Those are two incredible books I think that everybody should start with if you haven't read them. If you have read them, you should still read them. But I truly believe that there's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of light, there's a lot of things in those books that bring people to understanding what's going on. And once you start walking the path of light, guys, it doesn't necessarily get easier, right? You're still going to face things, but life will be more peaceful. The peace that surpasses all understanding will guide you and protect you. The law of the Lord is a lamp and a light unto your feet, right? He has you. So don't be afraid of what's going on around you, the people that don't understand, right? God's got a perfect plan, and He's calling you to be that light. So guys, if you have any questions, if you need anything, again, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys are thinking, and I'll see you on the next one.